Tonight, a major substitution for Toronto FC that's already scoring with many fans.
I think a new coach will be useful for TFC. Hopefully we can win some games.
After striking success at the international level, how coach John Herdman might be the changemaker Toronto FC needs.
And we're urging the other unions to move quickly.
Plus, the education minister instructs more teachers' unions to accept binding arbitration in the event of an impasse. We'll show you how union leadership is reacting to the labor pressure.
We need more buses. People have to get to work, right?
And restoring transit service, the increased bus trips Scarborough and students can expect to see, and when the enhancements will be in place. Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. We begin tonight with the latest in Ontario's ongoing labor negotiations for teachers. Today, the education minister urged more unions to agree to binding arbitration in the event of an impasse to avoid any potential strikes. And it comes after Friday's late-day announcement that the union representing high school teachers tentatively said yes to that process. But as Lorenda Redicop reports, the other major teachers' unions are not united on that deal.
Hi, everyone.
The education minister headed back to school today, just over a week before students will be back in class. And he's putting the pressure on teachers' unions that are still working on their next contract.
And we're urging the other unions to move quickly so that we can conclude negotiations. As I've said before, this should not take long.
On Friday, the Union for High School Teachers, the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation, agreed to the arrangement.
Accept a proposal to resolve bargaining with the Ford government through a process that could include binding interest arbitration.
It would take a strike threat off the table for 60,000 workers, though bargaining would continue. Any outstanding issues as of October 27th would head to arbitration. Now the education minister is asking the three other teachers' unions to make a similar agreement.
To sign this deal that will keep our kids in school.
The three remaining teachers' unions already said Friday they're not interested. They represent elementary teachers, English Catholic teachers, and those in the French system. CUPE represents education workers who aren't teachers. It already agreed to its next contract. CUPE's president doesn't believe arbitration would have worked for them.
While it may improve wages, it does not address working conditions. And those are some key issues that needed to be addressed and were addressed in our collective agreement that was freely negotiated. I think anytime that you have a choice, you should always try for a freely negotiated collective agreement.
The Union for English Catholic Teachers released a statement reiterating that binding arbitration is not something it can consider right now. It called on Minister Lecce to do more talking at the bargaining table and less talking in the media. It and the other two teachers' unions all have bargaining scheduled in the next 2 weeks. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
A significant outcry tonight against the Ford government's Greenbelt land swap coming from a number of Ontario First Nations. They say they weren't properly consulted about potential development on land that includes their territory.
There are many more areas to develop that don't touch on significant lands.
First Nations do stand with Ontarians who are opposed to this.
The chiefs say the Greenbelt land swap deal violates the Williams treaties, and they say they want a meeting with the premier about it. Big news for Toronto soccer fans, and fresh off some astounding international success, Team Canada's men's coach John Herdman will start as Toronto FC's coach this fall. It comes after a season where Toronto's soccer club has struggled at the very bottom of the Eastern Conference. Anam Khan is live for us at BMO Field. Anam, lots of people in our city are cheering this news, but maybe not soccer fans around the country, hey?
So while it is a step down for international soccer, Toronto FC fans see it as a leg up. They know that they could really use Herdman's help. And, you know, he coached the women's and the men's national teams in the last decade and led both of them to the World Cup. So they know, Toronto FC fans know they could really improve the standing for them as well. Fresh off helping the men's team qualify for last year's World Cup for the first time in almost 4 decades, Toronto soccer fans are hoping John Herdman is about to change the fate of Toronto FC.
I think a new coach will be useful for TFC. Hopefully we can win some games.
I mean, he did a good job with Canada. Canada was pretty bad before.
Dedicated Toronto FC fans like Ellie Zeldin, who bring the positive energy to BMO Field, say Herdman will be a game changer.
We know what John Herdman brings to the table, and we know how incredible of a motivator he is and how he's able to get a song out of players that nobody else can.
Herdman led the women's team to back-to-back bronze medals at the Olympics in 2012 and 2016. That paved the way for the team's first World Cup win in 2020. Herdman switched to head Canada's men's team in 2018, but now he's looking for a new challenge. In a statement to Canada Soccer, Herdman said, "It's time to move on. I know myself well and know that I'm motivated by impacting positive change and by the challenge of leading a team or an organization towards change on a significant scale. And he will find that challenge at TFC. The team has had a dreadful season, winning 0 out of the last 13 games. It's also the lowest ranked team in the Eastern Conference." While Herdman's move is a win for Major League Soccer, some recognize it as a loss at the national level.
They're losing the Canadian men's national team head coach less than 3 years away from a World Cup on home soil. That's a big blow for Canada Soccer, and they're going to have to find a way to fill that massive void sooner rather than later.
In the past year, Herdman has been vocal about financial issues plaguing national soccer, even becoming a hurdle when leading the team.
John Herdman moving away from Canada Soccer at this time is maybe an indictment of where Canada Soccer is, right?
So Mauro Biello is the interim coach who worked with Herdman in the last 5 years. And tomorrow, TFC will officially announce Herdman as the head coach right here at the BMO Stadium.
And we'll all be watching for that press conference tomorrow afternoon. Annam, thank you so much. All right, it is 20 degrees and clear skies tonight. Colette is here with the first look at weather. Colette, a beautiful evening tacked on to what was a beautiful day.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. Kind of that sweet spot in between where it's not too warm or the humidity's not too oppressive, not too cool, and dry conditions. So we had sunshine today, and look at some of these readings, including the warm spot towards the nation's capital at 25, Toronto at 23, very similar for Windsor, even though not reporting at that station right now. And then looking at your daytime highs as we expand to the Midwest, I do just want to show you some of that heat is still there in the Midwest, so close, but we are actually going to be seeing a trend where as we approach this next weekend, holiday weekend, we're likely going to see our temperatures creeping up. We may not get to 30 degrees in the month of August, but probably we're going to do it into September. Now, we have sunshine again tomorrow after clear skies are mostly clear tonight, but it's Tuesday night. We have a chance for getting some showers moving in, a greater chance of 5 to 10 millimeters in the Windsor area and some spotty showers through the GTA. Tonight, though, look at that overnight low, Chris, 11, but we're rewarded tomorrow afternoon.
Yikes, that is a chilly overnight. Thanks, Colette. Now to something you don't see every day. The TTC is about to get expanded service starting on Sunday. Scarborough and students are the two big winners from the system-wide changes. Greg Ross explains where the money is coming from and why advocates worry it's a temporary fix.
In the coming days, expect to see increased service along all TTC lines across the city.
I am pleased to announce that this coming Sunday, 2 days before school start, we are increasing transit service.
Mayor Chow says the timing is key because a lot of the new service will impact students.
They are going to get more frequent bus services, 126 trips to of routes serving schools.
Scarborough will see some of the biggest increases to service, which is much needed with the recent closure of Line 3 of the subway. Still, people there had mixed reactions.
We need more buses. People have to get to work, right?
Some places you find the buses do not even come in time.
In order to fund these service increases, the city is using money that was set aside to operate the Eglinton and Finch LRTs, which have both been delayed in opening. Questions are already being raised about what happens if and when the Eglinton and Finch LRTs do open, and that funding has to be transferred back into their operating budgets.
We're a little bit worried, though, that this could be a temporary fix, and it just highlights how important it is to get funding from the provincial and federal governments for the TTC.
Chow says they'll have to cross that bridge when they come to it.
I hate rolling back anything, so I can't make a blanket promise, but I do know Council will do everything it can to support the TTC.
The TTC says ridership is also on the rise, with weekly boardings up to 80% of pre-pandemic levels. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
To Broadview and Danforth now, the scene of construction congestion for a couple of weeks now. And starting today, only one lane is open in each direction on Danforth due to the work to replace aging streetcar tracks. The changes also include one northbound lane remaining open on Broadview between Gerrard Street and Danforth. You can check out the city's website for details of the full impacts. And this, of course, is the latest phase of restrictions. They are going to last until September 4th. Taking you next to Toronto Police Headquarters, where the Organized Crime Unit showed off a massive seizure of handguns today that were found in a North York hotel. Police say an Ottawa man is now facing more than 130 firearms-related charges. Dale Manukduk has the story.
Last Monday at around 3 p.m., a shocking discovery inside a hotel near York Mills and Don Mills Road. Staff were cleaning one of the rooms and found 3 handguns, called police who executed a search warrant, and they found 25 more.
These guns were 100% destined for our streets in Toronto, and as a result of this seizure, they cannot be used to take someone else's life and severely injure and maim people.
Police say the haul brings its year-to-date total to 382 crime guns seized. That makes up a big chunk of the around 1,300 seized in Ontario so far this year. Last December, Superintendent Watts stood at the same podium announcing a major bust of 62 firearms, the majority handguns similar to the ones found in the hotel. The street value worth up to $6,000 each. Watts says many of the guns found in the hotel have been traced to southern U.S. states.
We have probably one of the largest, if not the largest, undefended border in the free world. So there is a lot of border crossings. There is a lot of opportunity.
According to the Canada Border Service Agency, more than 1,200 firearms were seized in the last fiscal year. The Ministry of Public Safety says the feds have devoted an extra $500 million over the last 2 years to combat smuggling, but gun control advocates say the border isn't the only problem.
We also need to recognize that we have a homegrown problem that shows up in certain contexts. The Danforth shooting, the recent shooting in the Vaughan condo, and in fact, half of all guns that are recovered in crime across the country were legally imported and through one source or another.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
We're expecting an update tomorrow into the investigation of Kenneth Law. He is the Mississauga man accused of selling sodium nitrite online and targeting people at risk of self-harm. Peel police have not released any details about what will be discussed at tomorrow's 10 a.m. news conference, but it comes just days after investigators in the UK announced 272 people there bought lethal products from Canadian websites, 88 of whom died. Now UK police aren't linking Law to those cases yet, but he's facing 2 charges of counseling or aiding suicide in connection with 2 deaths in Peel. In total, Law is accused of sending around 1,200 packages to more than 40 countries and is being investigated by police in the U.S., Italy, New Zealand, and Australia. Welcome back. Another GTA church is calling on the government to do more to help house asylum seekers. Miracle Arena in Vaughan is one of several places of worship that has been acting as a temporary shelter for people who otherwise might end up sleeping on the street. Ali Chiasson has the latest.
We had to take the seats out and quickly make it a transitional home.
We're getting a tour of yet another shelter compound run by a church that's been housing African asylum seekers.
And over there, there's one of the containers we put in the windows, the flooring, the drywall.
The question today is if the congregation of Miracle Arena in Vaughan can set something like this up within a day or two, how come hundreds of asylum seekers are still in this situation going on 6 weeks now?
Now is a time for the federal government and the local government to step in. It's needed now.
The federal government has pledged $212 million to help house asylum seekers so that we won't see what we saw in July, people sleeping outside the shelter referral center for weeks. And yet, in a lot of cases,
Everything, all expenses, food, room, board, everything has been on the church.
Miracle Arena is just the latest in several GTA places of worship that are asking to sit down with the federal government and discuss logistics of putting the money to good use. One pastor even cut up his white collar.
I am not wearing this collar until the very last person has been moved to a place of dignity. This is a protest.
In a statement today, a spokesperson for Immigration Canada said, quote, "There is no simple solution, but we are confident that with everyone at the table, we can implement long-term, sustainable and compassionate measures that will ensure that the most vulnerable newcomers have a roof over their heads." Back at Miracle Arena in Vaughan, time's running out for finger pointing.
We need shelter immediately. That's really the need, because we know that in this country, winters are very long. And so we need to get the asylum seekers off the bus, out of the portables and into real shelter. And we need some support from communities and agencies and government, all levels of support.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Over to Brampton now, where Ontario's Labour Ministry says a man has died at an industrial recycling business. This happened around 7:30 this morning at Next Cycle, a commercial recycling company at Arenda Road and Dixie Road. Police say they were called to the location at 7:30 this morning. No details on the victim have been released or the circumstances of their death. A suspicious package at Union Station forced the closure of the Great Hall and caused the interruption of Via Rail service this afternoon.
I haven't received any travel advisories that there's any delay to the travel, and they have all of the entrances blocked off to get to Via, so I'm trying to figure out how to get into the building to get to the train.
The package was found inside the main entrance area between York and Bay Streets, and all entrances to the Great Hall were closed during the investigation. Via Rail services were put on hold until it was safe to resume operations, while TTC and GO services were not affected. Police say the package was not a threat or concern to public safety, but one person was taken into custody. Back to you, Colette. And while we're getting calm, beautiful weather here, a very different picture in the U.S. Southeast.
Yeah, we just really been seeing that Atlantic Ocean starting to churn out kind of system after system, and still talking about Hurricane Franklin. In fact, as it's strengthened to a Category 4 and having an impact for Bermuda, but the long-term impacts, trying to think ahead to Atlantic Canada, it does look like the trajectory will keep it to the south, maybe kind of clipping the edge of it, and I mean the outer edge of those storm force winds out to the Avalon Peninsula. So they are at least going to be looking at some very high tides and some rip currents there. And then we've got to focus on the strengthening Idalia and this projected path, and strengthening potentially to a Category 3 as we move forward in time to about midweek, and now still looking like between about Tampa and the panhandle of Florida where it would make landfall. So through that region, all kinds of preparedness going on, hurricane warnings in place. Outside of that, there are tropical storm warnings, and we'll watch these shift a little bit as we keep an eye on the track of that what will be a very intense storm. And then back at home, where we're looking at things actually rather quiet and dry, other than we do have to talk about the system moving in. So tomorrow evening, after a very nice day, but tomorrow evening into southwestern Ontario, some showers, a few embedded thunderstorms possible there. Overnight on Tuesday into Wednesday morning, some showers certainly possible into the GTA, and then some lingering cloud cover. That's into Wednesday morning, but we should see that moving on and kind of breaking up as we get into the afternoon. And once that next ridge of high pressure builds in, We're going to have sunshine for a few days, but we will have some of these cooler overnights, including tonight, where we're going to see that temperature going down to 11, some cases likely some single digits in southern Ontario. Once that system gets here, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, not much to it. Huntsville a little bit more, and maybe that 5 to 10 from Windsor over through Leamington towards Chatham-Kent. Look at these temperatures, though, tonight. Kitchener 9, Windsor 11, but we could actually see that dip towards 10. I think the Canadian model wanted to take it even down to 9. Hamilton, that chance there, too. And then for Toronto tomorrow afternoon, with that sunshine up to 25 degrees, a little humidity, but pretty comfortable. Some breezier conditions Wednesday behind that system as the winds turn to the northwest and cool things down. But as we head into the holiday weekend, Chris, things will not be cooling down. They'll be going in the other direction.
I bet people will love that. Thanks, Colette. A brand new immersive experience is set to captivate audiences at Toronto's Distillery District.
So what we're showing here today, we're on the moon, and this is our space exhibit. We also have another spectacle that we call Waking Wonderland that is more family friendly, that expands on the story of Alice in Wonderland. And so we like to view this space as like I said, a bit of a digital canvas where we can take you sort of any place you want to go.
Toronto company Secret Location announcing the 2 exhibits as part of a new permanent immersive venue called the Illuminarium. People will be able to travel through unique locations, amplifying the immersion with the use of touch, interaction, and even smell. Toronto artists like Juno Award-winning singer Lights and the Soul Pepper Theatre Company helped add to the fantastical stories, and you can check it all out starting Thursday. Finally, tonight, we want to introduce you to Demon, a black lab with a slightly dodgy past. She's now making amends by making sure construction on an enormous bridge between Windsor and Detroit goes off without a hitch.
The name came from the breeder because she's been getting into a lot of trouble in her younger years, I guess. At a minimum, every day we have 2 dogs here on site. So they're here every day, 1 in the morning, 1 at night. We have about 4 or 5 dogs that we change in and out. No dog wants to work 7 days a week.
Demon and her canine colleagues work alongside humans, of course, as well as fierce birds of prey to prevent other birds from nesting while construction is underway. The Gordie Howe International Bridge is expected to be completed by 2025, and once done, it'll be the longest cable-stayed bridge in North America. What a good pup. And that is our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. See you then.